Hey everyone, I'm here joined by my new friend, Kent Frazier, who I think maybe 2 months ago we first met. And when you meet some people, there's just a synergy and an energy that makes you both come alive. And I definitely felt that with Kent and his work at Fully Human, and what it means to be fully human. So wanted to just invite him in to have a quick conversation about how his project is evolving and manifesting, and how we're looking to collaborate with his work and Fathering Together's work. So Kent, thanks for being here.
Oh gosh, Brian, thank you so much. And I will wholeheartedly agree with your sentiments. When you meet certain people, there's an automatic resonance. And so the amount of time one knows another becomes irrelevant very quickly
Yeah.
when there's high resonance, and a sense of being up to something together, which is what I felt. That was how I would characterize my feeling when we met. So really grateful to be in this relationship, this budding relationship. I love the work you're doing with Fathering Together as a father, right? I've got a 7-year-old daughter and a 5-year-old son, and I do that 50% on my own and share custody with their mom 50%. And so, when I hold this question, what does it mean to be fully human at work? I would have answered that question one way before I had kids. Now that I have kids, I answer that question. That question expands exponentially for me anyway, in all kinds of directions. And so like, what does it mean first and foremost to be fully human? And what do we consider work, or our work to be? And as men, I know from my cultural and family upbringing, not putting any judgment on this, good or bad, right or wrong, but just like what I experienced was mom stayed home and took care of the domestic work. Dad went out somewhere and went to work. And that was how a family was run. And, this is just how it goes.
Right.
That was my lived experience, knowing that there's all kinds of other ways, but that was mine. So this is what I look for in my own lived reality. And when my lived reality is not that anymore, and now I'm a single dad, and oh, now my work is all of the at-home stuff too, in addition to being an entrepreneur. Being fully human in all of my work, having all the responsibilities of maintaining a home, and going out and earning a living such that I can maintain a home.
Yeah.
That all now becomes, my full responsibility. And coming to that realization, oh, this is what it means to be a grown-up. This is what it means to be an adult. So I'll just say, prior to having kids, I didn't know what real work was, or even why I was doing what I was doing, other than for my own entertainment and whatever.
Yeah.
So I'll pause here for a second, but that's just riffing for a bit on how we came together and how impactful the work of being a father radically disrupted my idea of what work was for me.
Yeah. Well, and I think what I love about what you're just describing is that we often equate work to the paycheck we receive, yet we have work all around us, right? As kids, we had homework, quote unquote. And now as parents, we have parent work. And that's the internal work we have to do to uncover our biases, uncover our discomforts with different things, but also how are we running our family? And that's everything from like doing the dishes, folding the laundry, to just making sure that the kids have food on the table or a decent bed to sleep in at night. And I think there's so many little things that as young men, we're not taught to be thought of, to really think about. And Jake is hopping in. So
Oh, sweet. Oh, I love Jake. Yes. Speaking of young men that knows a lot about lots of kids.
Hey, Jake.
Hey.
Hey,
how's it going?
Quick recording on what it means to be fully human at work and just fully human in general. So Thanks for popping into the conversation.
Absolutely. I'm excited
Good
for
to
this
see
one.
you, Jake.
You too, Kent.
Yeah.
You better bring your A game because I'm ready to take some notes, dude.
Well, what we were just describing, and you can jump right in with this in your own lived experience. What the inquiry is, what does it mean to be fully human at work?
Sure.
And when I was sharing with Brian is the way I would answer that question radically shifted once I became a father.
Yeah.
In all kinds of ways. How once upon a time, based on the family that I grew up in and how we choreographed our existence, mom's responsibility was the home stuff, and dad went out and did work out in the world, and that's how our family operated. And there were like pretty solid lines drawn on who does what.
Yeah.
And my experience of that is, I would guess yours and it's very different. So we live in different times, and becoming a father for me at first was like, oh, that's what I expect. I'm just going to go to work, and my wife is going to take care of the home stuff. And that created all kinds of consternation in our marriage. It wasn't an equitable. I know, Brian, you all have done talks on, having an equitable home. And my upbringing was not equitable in that way. I mean, it was inequitable. I had a lovely, my parents are still married. We have a lovely family unit. And it's just, how did we draw lines and who did what? And how much of that we take in as kids and think that's just how it has to go.
Yeah.
And when it doesn't go that way, all of our emotional reactions to like, oh, wait. And my hardest one was, this isn't my job. Like when I got divorced and all of a sudden now I'm 50% co-parent, which means I'm 100% both parents when I'm on call. Now all of the at-home work is now also fully my work. And I can't just distinguish it and put it on someone else. And I had all this psychological, emotional, violent, like really strong reaction. Like, this isn't my effing job. And so to having to work through all of that and be able to hold in the totality, oh, now as a human being, my whole job is to be a dad, first and foremost. I've got these two beautiful little babies that I need to nurture and care for and get to know and make sure we have a home and food and laundry and all that stuff. Like that shifts to job number one for me. And now I have to go have energy and space to go out and like be an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
Where before I was all just on the other side, right? And there was nothing here really, and it was all just out in the world. And so that's where we were. Like, please jump in. Let me turn my mic off, and would love to hear your wisdom.
Oh yeah. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yep.
Okay. So yeah, it was crazy. I guess there's like a lot of different stories that I could tell, but the main one, the first one that I went through and experienced as a dad, so we had like between 2010 and 2012, we had four kids, right? So 4 separate births. My wife did amazing. And then when they were 2, 3, 4, and 5, my wife got sick, and they weren't really sure what it was. Like it was like multiple sclerosis, but it wasn't at time. It was just weird. But anyway, it doesn't. So she was in and out of hospitals and care facilities for a year, and so I became a full-time like dad of 4 underneath the age of 5, and it was nuts. Thankfully my sister-in-law lived with us at the time, and so she helped out like while I was gone at work. But I switched my schedule from like 8 to 5 to 7 a.m. to 4 p.m. So I would get to work, I would be able to get home earlier and stuff, and just like go 100% into dad mode, and dinner, clean house, put everyone to bed, get everyone ready for the next day, dressing, all of it, and then going to see mommy, in the hospital, and doing all that. Sometimes we'd be able to stay the night over there, in the hospital room or in like the extended care facility room. And she was like, she could move and walk around sometimes, but it was still like, hard. And then back and forth, and then the tire blows out on the Suburban, so you got to do that. You're at a 4-way massive intersection in Las Vegas with 4 little kids in the like stuff like that happens, and then you're just like, this is crazy. What am I doing? And so there's like so many different hats, and there's so many different emotions that we have to deal with, sometimes immediately, and we're not ready to process those. So I just think that being able to have the ability to immediately just like take a breath, be calm in that storm, and then be like, all right, what's the first thing I need to do? And then do that, and then do the second thing, and then make the phone call, and then reach out for some help. And then, all right, next time, like analyze the situation and be like, all right, before I need to start making everything the night before, packing the diaper bags the night before, laying out the clothes the night before, or doing the laundry like twice a week instead of like trying to do it on the weekends all at once, so I don't know if that helps at all, but and at the time, thankfully, I had a really nice, cushy supply chain manager job. So thankfully, going to work was like a relief, to be honest. And then who we are at work. When I started there, they knew that like I went to church, so that kind of kept me from swearing a lot, or whatever. It kind of kept me on a better behavior or whatever. That was just kind of like a example of trying to, because that's who you want to be, and then you're like, oh wait, I'm a dad. I shouldn't really be doing that anyway, because of that, like, I don't know, because then you're like the whole people pleasing thing, and then like, do you care? And then you don't. And now I'm just kind of blabbering, but it's
you're doing a great job. Yeah, you're thank you so much for grabbing the mic. Really, you're doing so awesome. What I hear you pointing to is all the work that it takes to be a human being, to like, period.
Yeah.
Like all the things that we need to attend to. And before, good to see you, John Harris. Thanks for jumping in. Before you all jumped in, Brian and I were riffing on like how limited we think of work sometimes to just like what we do to earn a paycheck, or what we do for money, when that's just such a narrow definition of work. And like, gosh, Jake, you pointed to so many things. Like, I'm gonna leave room for John to come into the conversation and Harris to come in, but like, thanks so much for jumping in. You just beautifully pointed to all the work that there is to do in a human life, distinct from what we do to earn a paycheck. And how all that stuff, when our partner gets sick and we have all these kids wanting and needing, we have to do all that stuff. Oh, we're just supposed to like somehow leave all that stuff out of us and show up at our job and pretending like none of that stuff has any influence on who I am or how I'm doing. Right. So thank you. Beautiful. John, how are you, my friend?
Hey, I'm good. I'm just laughing because I was I was just talking to Jake. We were on another Zoom call and we had to go over here, and I come over and like, who's talking? But it's the same guy. And we're all kind of this crew. I don't know about Harris, but like there's 4 talkers right here. And I can go, I'm like, I'll say my girlfriend, I'll be like, can you just stop me? Because I'll just keep going. Like Jake just did, like, just stop. But I was on with Jake actually, and we're talking about chapters and some business stuff. And I get a text from my son, or no, a phone call So I hear it, and it's, of course, I'm usually, if he's calling me, he's like, hey, I'm on break. And I'm like, okay, like, what do you want? Because he clearly wants something. I'm like, you're on break, which means you didn't just call me because you're on break to say hi. Like, I know that. I'd like to, like, what do you need? Sure enough, he said he wanted, sleepover or something, trying to work a Thursday sleepover because they're on vacation next week and maybe tomorrow. Anyway, point is, yeah, what you just said. So it's as if, yeah, and being somebody who works in the field of fatherhood, it gets kind of crazy. Those lines get super blurred, and challenging. And yet it's like I draw from those experiences, obviously, in the work, but that comes also with like trying to, that constant sense of like, being, am I successful? It's the personal and professional tend to it gets blurred. So even if things aren't going well as a parent, that, I do have to have some boundary around what I'm doing at work, especially because of what the nature of the work I do. But I mean, I suppose anything you do, it's hard to feel successful or good if stuff in either area. If my work's not going well, it's hard to feel great about a parent because we identify so much, I think, as guys, generally speaking, with, how well we're doing, what we're accomplishing in all these areas. So, yeah, but I just laughed when you're like, yeah, the idea that you would just stop and then go in, and that, I mean, yeah, you have to have boundaries, but that stuff is all alive, whether you're at work or, at home, that spillover, I guess. So I don't know, that's where I'm at.
Yeah,
Stop
no,
me.
awesome. Please stop me. Yeah. Harris, how you doing, man? Want to give you a chance to jump into the conversation, say hi.
Hello, hello, hello. Sorry, I can't be on the screen just yet. But as what we're already talking about, all of us wearing multiple roles, fathering as well as working. Yeah, so I'm with you. Just to say a little bit about myself, was there an initial question or is this a general who you are?
Yeah, just give us an intro. Would love to know who you are, please.
Oh, wow. I was like, I don't know who the keynote is because everybody has such a wealth of wisdom. So I'll say from my own experience, so I come from, I'm a cultural coach by design, executive coaching, life coaching. And what I see a lot, or saw through the years, is you end up having to make a choice at some point. Like you can't be 100% everywhere. Like I kind of believe that balance is a falsehood. I think it's more so a thing about rhythm. Are you able to gain a cadence? And are you able to gain cadence? Where are you able to get that cadence? Because if you try to do it all at once, you're begging for burnout. I like to see myself working from the intersection. And when I say by that, I'm neurodiverse. I have ADHD. So I've been now an executive level leader with ADHD for the last 6 years. And I've learned that being able to speak to, whether you're autistic or whether you have ADHD or any invisible disability, that people aren't used to seeing that vulnerability from a leader. There's a good book, if anyone is familiar with ADHD, called You Mean to Say I'm Not Stupid, Lazy, or Crazy? And those are a lot of the judgments that come along with people who have ADHD. But then another element, you guys can't see me, but I'm a Black guy. You have the race component there. So it's like, okay, do they think that, oh, Harris is having a bad day? Or do they think Harris shouldn't be in this position? So there are a lot of discussions, especially as a leader and someone who's working with up and coming leaders, to help them release that stigma and to let them show up as their true selves. Because in the Black community, we talk a lot about what we call is code switching, meaning, you know, in different places, I have to be a different person. So imagine having to be a different person culturally, as well as having to, we call it masking, having to mask, you know, so you can come off as neurotypical as possible, and then dealing with everything else that we deal with as fathers and leaders. So I love to help people unpack that. But one thing that I also wanted to call out is, you know, not everybody knows that they're neurodivergent. So some of us are wondering, why is this so hard? And meanwhile, it's because we're trying to function like the people that we see, and we may not have all the same amount of spoons, as some people say, to get the job done. So all in all, as a father, my goal is to help identify people's strengths, regardless of how you're showing up mentally or physically, and build around that to just try to, you know, get beyond, you know, a day-to-day approach. So that's me.
Amen, brother. You said so much gold there.
Thank
No,
you.
really, like so much gold. So thank you for jumping in and for being vulnerable and sharing uh, about yourself in those ways. I mean, that's all part of this inquiry that we've been stewarding. What does it really mean to be fully human at work? What are we allowed to share? What are we not allowed to share? You know, and each of us have different stories and beliefs on what all that is. I mean, that's all the stuff we explore in our curriculum. Fully Human at Work is like, oh, what was the program I received as a kid that says, you know, white guys do this, black guys do that, moms do this, dads do this, boys do this, girls do that, right? Like all this stuff that we were programmed with are what we just call cultural givens. It's the water we grew up in. So I don't know any different until I actually look and see what they are, and see if they're true, and see if they're valid, and see if they're useful. And so Harris, you spoke to a number of those. It's like, oh, can someone that's neurodiverse hold an executive position? Right? Like these are beautiful questions. You know, can a mom be a mom and a CEO of an organization? Right? Like some people would say absolutely not. Some people would say absolutely. Right? And so how do we all come into this conversation, this inquiry of like, who am I? What do I most want to bring forward? And such that my life is working and I'm contributing in a way that makes me come fully alive as dad, as a mom, as an executive, as a friend, as whatever. So our life fully works. And so unless and until we examine all these cultural givens, more often than not, we would find ourselves more like a robot executing someone else's rule base rather than moving through life with our own sovereignty or agency. And what I just love about this group of men, as I'm getting to know you all over the last couple months, is I just like deep bow of respect for you all. You know, challenge what I hear in all these conversations is, you know, challenging these cultural norms about who we are and aren't, who we can and can't be, what success is or is not, what enough is or is not. So I just like, I'm just so honored to be part of this group of guys that I would say doing the work. Like this is the fully human work it takes so that the rest of our lives actually work. Brian, you've been quiet for a while, holding space beautifully. Thank you for creating this conversation. What's coming up for you?
No, I'm not creating the conversation. I just opened a Zoom room, man. We are creating this conversation, and I think that's why I love this community. That's why I love the job I get to do, and why we need to get more dads into this space is because we don't necessarily take the time. And I was just talking with my wife yesterday. We get so hung up in productivity is success rather than deep, meaningful relationships or deep understanding. And as all of you were talking, I was just thinking like the job I left to go full time for Father Together, as soon as the pandemic hit, they discontinued PTO. They were like, if people need to take time off, take time off. We're all home with our kids. If like, we will get the stuff that we need to get done, and whatever doesn't get done probably wasn't that important. And I think that's what I've really been reflecting on a lot in this, as I review my first year as an executive director. What did I spend my time on, both in my office job, quote unquote, and in my fatherhood roles? And what do I need to keep doing? What do I need to let go of? And what can other people do? And if I'm letting other people do it, whether that's my partner, my children, or people that work with me like John, how do I let go of my standards and accept other people's standards into that? And not get hung up on, oh, this painting looks a little different, or this project isn't exactly how I envisioned it, but it's still a great, phenomenal project. My kids are making great choices, even if I don't understand them half the time. And getting off of my ego trip, getting off of my, I've got to control everything, because like, this was a cultural given. I'm the man, I set the stage, right? And that's not how it needs to be. And that's why the guys here, guys other spaces that I work with at Fathering Together, like, it all keeps me humble, because we're all on this journey of figuring shit out. And half of us at the time we're calling each other kettles black and all that other kind of whatever phrase. So yeah, and here comes another great dad to join the conversation. So
Oh, beautiful.
hey Jeremy, welcome aboard. I know you and I are supposed to talk, but I figured you'd get more out of this conversation than you and I talking about websites. So Jeremy's a dad coach in his own right, parenting expert, all that jazz. So welcome to the call, Jeremy.
Hey yo, I know some stuff about some things sometimes.
Well, today is all about how are we fully human at work, but really just how are we fully human, right? I feel like my statement earlier of like, work is what we get paid to do is just such a false statement anymore, especially coming out of the pandemic, because there's just so much work to do, full stop. So, but Kent has a phenomenal, oh, here comes maybe Harris in another screen. Anyway, but yeah, I'll turn it floor over to you again, Kent.
Oh, thanks, Brian. Good to have you, Jeremy. We've got a nice crew of Chrome Domes gathering here. Gotta, give a shout out to the Bald Headed Mafia. There's Harris. Hey, oh, beautiful. Beautiful, beautiful. Yeah. So I want to maybe be a little, no, not maybe, I'm going to be a little vulnerable, as Harris so courageously opened up the door and shared. Thank you, my friend. What really gave rise to this expression of my life's work was one of the darkest, scariest moments of my life. It's called deep depression, suicidal depression. That I had never experienced anything like this in my life. I lived a privileged life. I've been, pretty successful at almost everything I've tried. And then I started getting my ass kicked in ways that I'd never had my ass kicked before, namely fathering. Like, holy crap. Like this just exponentially shifted the context of my life more radically than I could have ever anticipated. And I had a big job and I was running a nonprofit at the time, so I had a lot going on, and I couldn't hold it all. And I didn't feel like I was enough, and I wasn't doing enough in any of it. I wasn't doing enough in my head of HR job. I wasn't doing enough in my executive director of the nonprofit I was leading job. I wasn't doing enough as a husband job. I wasn't doing enough as a father job. I wasn't doing enough of my own self-improvement. I just fell into this really deep, dark pit, trying to manage a really full, blessed life. It was such a paradox. And so, my marriage ended, and now I'm left trying to figure out how to be a single dad to a 1 and 3 year old. And my professional career as being the person who had been in charge, holding executive level positions where I'm in charge of the people of the company. My responsibility is for the human beings that work here. I know we're in a for-profit context, And I know most people are here primarily to maximize profit. My job is to make sure we're not doing that at the expense of the human beings that actually are giving their lives to our cause. And so I got also really sick, compounded on this, was that most companies that are for profit use people to generate profit. In the IT professional services world, we call it utilization, but it's really like we're using human beings as fuel to feed our profit motive. Unless there's some higher articulated reason that our company exists that includes profit, but it's like, what impact are we having on humanity or on the well-being of people and the living systems of the planet? Because I've been involved in that. Conscious capitalism. How do we point this engine of capitalism to not be so competitive, but be cooperative so that we don't continue to debase the substrate upon which we all depend to exist? Maybe that's our work right now, to stop unraveling the living systems of the planet. So in this deep, dark depression, not only am I trying to figure out how to be a single father to a 1 and 3-year-old, I also can't have my soul go back to be an agent of an economic system that I believe exploits people for profit. And it doesn't work for a lot of people. It works for like 23 people that have as much money as 4 billion when you look at the wealth gap that exists. So here I am, suicidally depressed because I don't think the world works. And in that moment, I get present to one of my teachers, Krishnamurti, who's a Hindu teacher, who once upon a time put forth this proposition that it is no measure of health to be well adjusted to a profoundly sick society. It is no measure of health to be well adjusted to a profoundly sick society. And the World Health Organization cites depression as the leading cause of disability on the planet. So the next thing I heard was, well, what if my depression and this depression, this epidemic, pandemic of depression that's leading all disability on the planet, what if that's actually not an illness? What if it's actually an appropriate immune response to a society that's pathological in its expression? Teaching us to reach for things because we've been conditioned. I've been conditioned to want a Porsche. I've been conditioned to want a 4,000 square foot house. I've been conditioned to think that success is a 7-figure or 6-figure job. I've been conditioned to think that enough is having a beach house and a home house. And that's nothing I was born with. That was all programmed in me. And I got it all. I had my 911 convertible. I had my condo in La Jolla. I had my girlfriend who was 16 years younger than I was. I had everything I ever wanted. Everything that I was conditioned to want for and reach for, I got. And it was empty. It was like, I was looking for Alan Funt and where's Candid Camera? So I couldn't go back to be an agent of this system. And so I'm like, is this a sick society that we've created? And what might our work be today as a species to change the trajectory of how it's going? Pick your topic: gender equity, race equity, wealth equity, food equity. Like, pick your topic. What's our work individually and collectively right now at this time in human history? And who do we want to be? And and are we here expecting to be given things? Are we here stewarding life on the planet for future generations? Like, what are we really up to is the inquiry that we're in. And we're doing this. We've hosted 8 cohorts over the last 2 years. We've had a couple hundred people come through this. We're working with Amazon in 8 countries, bringing this inquiry into their organization. What does it mean to be fully human at work at Amazon? Y'all say you're striving to be Earth's best employer. What does that mean? So from this deep, dark, suicidal episode gives birth to this beautiful inquiry, not holding depression as an illness, but holding depression as an actual, an immune response to a life that's not working. And rather than staying at the effect of it, how might I be a creator? How might I tap into my innate natural resources, my communities that I care about and that care about me, and actually create something that matters, that's meaningful, rather than just continuing to subscribe to all the cultural givens I inherited that don't work for me anymore. So I see some head nods. So let me pause and see what's coming up in the group. Thanks for letting me, yeah, please, Harris, jump in.
Man, you dropped so many gems. You know, one thing that, again, a lot of my work is from the intersection. If you've done any work around, you know, anti-racism, diversity, and inclusion, you know, racism, you know, whatever terms you want to use, is harmful on both sides. A lot of times they think it's just, oh, it's just harmful for the people of color, or, you know, but it's really harmful on both sides, because no one should be building into this system that ultimately tears out your soul. You know, because it's like, okay, if you're doing well, then you to some degree you may still end up being a husk of a person. And one other thing you said that really landed with me, whenever I meet a young man who is about to have a child, because there's a different conversation about to get married. That's a whole, I give him that one too. But if you're about to have a child, you know, one of the things that I tell her, I said, okay, just be prepared. Your wife's probably gonna hate you for a year. It's fine. You'll get your wife back. That's number one. Number two is the most beautiful thing about having children is that it shows you that you are in fact limited. And what I mean by that is, you know, growing up, especially if you were in sports and everything, you know, it's like, you're your only limit, you know, da, da, da. No, you're limited, and it's okay, because whatever you have to give, that's what it is, you know. And this world was built, you know, this, you know, regardless of whether you have a faith background, you know, we were meant to be here and function as we truly are. You know, so there's a peace that comes with knowing that your limited self, it's still more than everything you need to function well in this world. You know, and to show up for your family and to show up for your community. You know, it's enough. My mother just told me this morning, she said that my grandmother used to say, you know, you have to cut the cloth to fit your size. You got to cut the cloth to fit your size. So I think the question that we often need to ask ourselves is, you know, what are we trying to fit into, and why? And so yeah, those are just two things that really touched my spirit when you were speaking. Thank you.
Oh, thank you, Harris. Beautiful reflection. Thank you so much. You're awesome, man. I'm so glad you showed up today. Jeremy, what's coming up for you, my friend?
I've been through the long dark night, so depression's BS. It's a belief system, because unless somebody's physically sitting on you, you're not depressed. You're having a symptomology. I do a lot of neuroassociative work and repatterning. So yeah, it's any. If you're not effortless, then there's something that needs to be adapted, shifted, adjusted, because kids don't have to think about how to be a certain way. They just imagine that they do it and it's effortless. It's when we put in all the adult structures and the adult rituals and requirements and labels and performance and measures and KPIs and all that crap, kids don't do any of that. They're just like, we're going to play a pickup game of whatever, and they make up the rules as they go, and off we are to the races. And we lose that because of all the different stories and stuff. If you haven't read it or you haven't looked into it, Spiral Dynamics, I think you'll find very fascinating with Claire Graves, because it talks about the thinking systems.
I'm a huge Spiral Dynamics fan. I'm a master integral coach, you know, through Ken Wilber's work and all. So I love Spiral Dynamics. Beautiful.
Yeah. So you just get people up to the 7, the yellow flex flow, and then everything is. So it's just, how do we do that systemically and individually, and how do we do that culturally? And that's kind of a lot of the work that I do with families, is how do you build those structures so that it's a win-win. You feel we're big and happy, AKA existentially validated, and then the other person does too. And if you start doing that with kids and you teach them, establish emotional, create your own emotional safety and a certain respect boundaries, then the whole planet changes, because now we don't need to take from anyone. We can just choose what to give and go, oh, You're not a great playmate. Let me go find someone else to play with. And, you know, 2 keys on the keyboard don't sound so good, but separate by 1, but you need all 88 keys to make the music. So there's no fault or blame in any of that. It's just recognize the impact and go, oh, it links up and we amplify, let's play, or it doesn't. And I think that's what I'm hearing out of what you're talking about, is recognizing that dissonance, and then how do we structure it differently?
Absolutely. Use the dissonance as feedback. It's data. It's like not good or bad. It's just, oh, like that's not ease. Let me move away from that. That's a guardrail of sorts.
Yeah. Well, me as a kung fu guy, you know, our model is hit people, and then if you don't want to get hit, don't make mistakes, because the hit is the feedback, right? You can't hit me if I don't have any holes in my structure. You can't hit me. You can only hit me if I have an opening. So any negative feedback, any negative pressure, oh, I got to adjust my systems to calibrate, because if I can just take away all openings, you can't hurt me. And that's the whole, you know, our system has a Buddhist background, so it's all about compassion and nonviolence. You go, wait, why are monks studying nonviolence? Because if I only know how to create peace, I don't know what to do with offers of violence. If I know how to handle violence and refuse to play, I can turn it back to peace. Different game. And that takes that from effect back to cause. It's a totally different paradigm.
Beautiful. I appreciate you bringing in the Buddhist reference. Our offering is built on that inquiry as well. So as we were building the curriculum, it's like, what do we want the spine? What do we want the architecture to be? Oh, the Eightfold Path. The way I see things gives rise to the way I think about things. The way I think about things gives rise to the way I talk about things, which gives rise to the way I take action, right? So on and so forth. So we use that as the underlying architecture for our inquiry. How are you seeing this such that you're thinking about it the way you are and speaking about it the way you are?
Right.
And is there a different way to be able to see it?
Yeah. Well, if we get 8.3 billion people to cooperate instead of compete,
Right.
then think about how much we've created as a species fighting each other for stuff. And if we could just stop that crap and be friends and help each other, how much more could we, because it takes everything exponential, because, you know, you take a system of complexity, once you add one piece in, it's an exponential ripple, and you keep adding. So we've got 8.3 people exponentially rippling into 8.3 billion other people. Like the complexities of what we could create if we just got over the stupid scarcity. And you know, go back to Buddhism, the idea of dukkha or separation or duality. What you want is already in the universe. You just need to align yourself to it, and it'll come to you. It's the law of gravity, right? So like, we just need to do that in our infrastructure, in our geopolitical systems, our economic systems, religious systems. Like there's a Gestalt shift that needs to happen. But once you've got one community that can start to do it sustainably, then you can begin to ripple it, and it begins to impact. It's an idea virus that it consumes, but it expands in the consumption rather than contracts.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love this stuff.
Yeah, what I'm gathering you saying is like, we've been working together for quite some time and we're just finally meeting each other.
Yes, exactly.
Like we're stewarding a similar conversation
Mhm.
from our respective, you know, hands on it. So,
Exactly.
so thank you. Really appreciate
Yeah.
you showing up and love
Yeah, you
everything.
too.
Awesome. Thank you so much. John, Jake, Brian.
Yeah, I'll jump in there if I can real quick. I gotta get going, but I think we're just a product of our environment, you know, from the beginning, and how we're raised and when we're kids, and then when we go out, and who our friends are, and who we associate with, and then where we work, and then you're a product of your environment that's at work, and then if you want to change, you got to change your environment. And that was a big thing when I was in my first like corporate job role thing, and I didn't want to hang out on the weekends and drink beer anymore, and just get plastered. I wanted to, like, I moved to Florida to enjoy the beach and to be outside, and I don't want to be hungover all weekend. So I had to worked that. I learned that early, right? And then who do you want to be associated with at work? And then you start thinking differently. And then the next thing you know, you're working with the executive level dudes. I'm a 25-year-old guy flying first class around the world, fixing plants, circuit board making plants, because I changed how I thought. I changed that environment. And Jeremy, you threw out some words that I gotta like look up for a couple weeks in a dictionary, man. That was awesome. But and then Kent, back to what you first started talking about at the beginning of your journey, and thank you for being so vulnerable about that stuff. I know it's hard to talk about. With that, like, it's just like for my wife and I, and even growing up with my parents, it was just common sense to like, something needs to be done, somebody does it, you know, maybe it's mom, maybe it's dad, it's just get it done, you know. And so that's always been kind of like our thing. It's just common sense, so just do it, you know. And then also as like a whole is we think we're all unique in our own like way, like what we think about, what we like unfortunately, how many people in the world experience what you went through, Kent? You know, like millions and millions and millions every year, you know, and there will be more and more and more. So like, and then I have a similar thing kind of like you, like with, I thought having these things and, you know, all this status and money or things, and like, I think there's a light at the end. I think I'll feel good then, but you don't. And it's about who you are and building yourself and your self-worth and your emotional intelligence, and then who you surround yourself with. And then so it's all just like, oh, I say all that to say we are more common than uncommon in every single way, you know. So, and we all can't control when we pee or when we poop. So, you know, there you go. Like, I tell my kids this, like, we can only control 4 things 100%, and that's our, you know, our actions, our attitude, our gratitude, and our effort. And then every other thing we have to be okay with somehow, or know how to process it, I guess. So I'm done.
I hope you're putting those words in your book, man. That was great.
Yeah, they are. But
Yeah, thank you. Go ahead, Brian, please.
I was just say it's 10 till the hour, and I know I've got something at 3. I'm sure other people have stuff to do. Do you have any closing words of wisdom, Kent, to send us out, or homework that we can all be working on to improve?
Oh gosh. I feel like words of wisdom were coming from all directions today. So I just want to say thank you for you all showing up and being part of this conversation and sharing as you do. I don't have any answers. I practice, and I appreciate being in communities of practice. So I'm honored to be part of the Fathering Insider community of practice, and, you know, hold this as part of my work as well, and what it means to be fully human. So I just want to say thank you for being in it with me, gentlemen.
Yeah, appreciate you, man. Appreciate the insights from all of you. Yeah, next week we've got even more great folks coming, and after Mother's Day, rather, we've got some panels that are coming up as well around what we can do with our paid leave to build those emotional bonds, and as well as getting some adventure dads like Steve Lemig, Paul Humes, and a couple others to talk about the playful side of fatherhood. So yeah, we'll keep the train rolling and keep hitting it from all sides. So have a great afternoon, everybody, and be well with yourselves. Yeah.
Hey, real quick, I'll share. I hate promoting, but like, if anyone's interested in joining our upcoming program, we still have a couple seats left. Let me know. If the price tag's an issue, let me know. You know, happy to accommodate folks that are in the work. So if this at all feels of interest to you to go deeper in what we talked about today, I invite you to consider it.
Looks good. Thank you, Ken.
Yeah. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, everybody.
Awesome.
Be well.
Bye, guys.
Peace.
Ciao, ciao.